We are now live.
All right. Welcome everybody to the Asheville Transit Committee, May 21st, 2024, from 5 to 7 p.m. The Transit Committee is a volunteer citizen board designed to offer input and guidance to the Asheville Transit System and City Council. We do not set or change routes, control Asheville's transit budget, or have authority over staff, drivers, or the management company. We are a group of citizens like you who are here to ensure community concerns are taken into consideration when setting public transit policy. At this present time, I'll go ahead and do the roll call. Harvey Harrell, I'm your chair for today and glad to be here today. Glad to see everyone in attendance. Sandy Aldridge.
Yes, sir. I'm here.
Thank you, Sandy.
Thank you, Harvey.
Joseph Chesler.
Yes, Harvey. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm here.
Glad you're here, Joe. Bill Loftus.
Here.
Glad you're here, Bill. Colin is kind of skeptical today. Are you here, Colin? I think he's on vacation. Kara Wheeler. Kara Wheeler. She must be working. Elaine Barnes.
Here.
Thank you, Elaine. We do have a quorum for today, so we'll continue on with the minutes. I need the May 21st, 2024 agenda for review and approval and the March 19th, 2024 minutes for review and approval. May I have a motion to accept these agendas as they are written?
I'll motion.
Thank you, Sandy. May I have a second?
I'll second, Harvey.
Thanks, Joseph. The minutes are reviewed and they are approved. Trust everyone's read the minutes for the day and are knowledgeable of everything on. Moving on, we don't have any. Nicole has informed me that there is no public comment at this time. Moving on to new business, City of Asheville staffing updates. This will be the introduction of the Transportation Department's new interim director, Paul Ballard. Paul, you have the floor.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'm very pleased to be here and working with the committee. I've been looking forward to plugging into this ever since I started. I've been on the job 3 weeks, so not too many tough questions tonight, please. I've been familiarizing myself with all of the issues that as fast as I can with all of the issues affecting the transit system, and Jessica and Amber and Chris and others have been very helpful in bringing me up to speed. I've been a public transit manager for many years, and the last few years I've been doing interim assignments. My last one was I was the interim CEO at the North County Transit District in San Diego. So San Diego was a pretty good place to spend last winter. But I'm really pleased to be here. I'm a 28-year resident of Weaverville, and so I've watched the progress of the transit system for many years. I've been a passenger, and I admire what the city's doing and what you as the transit committee are doing. And I look forward to being a part of this effort. And I hope you'll call on me if I can be of assistance at any time. And I'm looking forward to my first committee meeting. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Paul. I'll try not to put too many tough questions at
All
you,
right.
but my other committee members, they tough.
All right. Well, just be kind.
I'll ask them to be kind.
Thank you.
I noticed Kara. Did you join?
Yes, Harvey here. Apologize for being late.
That's all right. I'm glad to hear, Kara. Joseph has his hand up.
Yeah, Paul, welcome. I'm a resident of West Asheville and look forward to your management of the department along with our existing staff. I have a question. How did you handle North San Diego County from Weaverville?
Well, I spent a lot of time out there. I've actually, having been a 28-year resident of this area, I've maintained 2 homes in different places. So I spent 12 years in Nashville, Tennessee as their CEO, and that was a nice drive back and forth from Nashville. But then when I went to Fort Worth, Texas for a 5-year stint, I had to start flying. And San Diego was a long haul, but my wife enjoyed coming out to San Diego. We lived about a 10-minute walk from the beach. So it was a very pleasant assignment. And I worked with the board out there and helped them to hire a brand new CEO and they got an outstanding CEO who's doing a great job. So it was a real pleasure to be part of that. A little problem out there is that the railroads that we operate run up and down the beach. And when they were built, it was pretty solid track, but part of what I was dealing with was the bluffs and whatnot. I started collapsing and the sand and whatnot. And so they're putting a ton of money into reinforcing the railroad right away, but it's the second busiest rail corridor in the U.S. for passenger service between San Diego going all the way up the West Coast. But I lived in Oceanside, 8-minute walk to work. It was a very nice assignment, but I did have to. It was a bit of a commute.
Good. Thank you. I'm working remote now in California. I was down in San Diego just last weekend, and I was thinking about you.
Yeah.
Thanks very much. Welcome.
Oh, I'm happy to be. And by the way, it's great to be able to catch a bus to work or drive and not have to go to the airport on Fridays and Sundays. So this is a real plus for me. Plus the work. I love the work.
Amen. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Joseph. Does anyone else have any questions for Paul that they would like to present him with? If not, we'll move on down the agenda line. Transit Committee membership. This will be the introduction of our new member, Elaine Barnes. I'd like to say a few things about Elaine before I let her speak. Elaine is give y'all the background of her. Elaine's 75. She's has community contacts, pedestrian commuter, and she has a background in public health experience. She has no conflicts of interest with this committee. Longtime Asheville resident and bus rider. She wants to promote use of public transportation. Riding the bus is a great asset to Ashevilleans and to many not accessing this reliable and valuable service. Elaine wants to bring a willingness to speak up for public transportation in Asheville. She rides the N1, N3, and S3. And the Multimodal Transportation Commission of Asheville has reviewed and approved Elaine's application. And if there are any questions for Elaine by the present members, please ask her. If not, Elaine, would you like to address the committee?
Thank you. I appreciate being appointed. I am an advocate for public transport, and I enjoy the bus service here and want to promote it, particularly among the Asheville City population. So thank you for letting me join in.
Thank you. Welcome aboard, Elaine. Are there any questions anyone in the committee would like to ask or staff? Ask Elaine. Kim Roney has her hand raised.
Thank you, Harvey.
Thank you for joining, Kim.
Of course. So my name is Kim Roney. I'm the city council member that liaisons the transit committee. And I just wanted to say thank you to Elaine for participating and bringing your experience riding the bus and advocating for public transit. And while I'm on the mic, I'll just say welcome to Paul as well. We're lucky to have you both at the table.
Thank you, Councilwoman Roney. Is there anyone else like to welcome Elaine? Okay, I don't see any more hands raised in the queue. Moving on the agenda, Transit Committee retreat. Committee chair requests discuss planning for a potential transit committee retreat. On this subject, I talked to Amber, and I think she has something to say about the retreat.
No, I think we just,
Amber.
thank you, Harvey. Hi. I don't know how much I have to say. You all wanted to discuss this about the initial planning. We do have some new staff that we're still onboarding, Chris and Christina. We have some big projects that we're trying to wrap up and some we're trying to embark on. So we'd have to look at making sure that we would have enough time and we'd be able to focus appropriately on the actual logistics of the retreat. But I know this is something you all wanted to discuss, and we are welcome to it. I just ask that we can be a little mindful of some of our staff resources and time in the next couple months.
Okay, so you would like for us to put it off until the next couple of months?
I think you can plan. I mean, I think you should open the discussion and plan, and we can look for dates, but you could still plan for it and talk about the things you'd like to discuss. Staff is here as a resource. We'd like to guide. We want to make sure the retreat is as successful as possible. So we can talk and discuss it and just possibly look for some dates in a few months. We'll need to look at it.
Okay, I think Kim's beat me to the point. Councilwoman Roney.
Sure. So I really appreciated the opportunity to meet with Harvey and Kara about what a retreat could look like, because I used to be on the transit committee, and we haven't done a transit committee retreat, if I can remember right, since 2019 maybe.
Exactly.
So a lot has changed since then. So some things that we talked about in previous retreats could look like, what are funding strategies? What are the, for example, we had a transit white paper that was a research document that talked about the different kinds of funding that are available. That obviously would need an update, but we also looked at short, medium, and long range planning documents to make sure everyone's on the same page. One of the suggestions could be inviting someone from the Metropolitan Planning Organization to present on the regional transportation planning documents. You could also, like previous transit committee retreats, have looked at what does it look like to be a transit ambassador as a transit committee member, advancing things like riding with respect, what to expect when you're on the bus, and best practices for riding the bus. So there's some previous examples of what you might expect at a retreat, but it can be a really great way for new transit committee members to better understand our systems and processes, but also plan for future transit committee meetings over the year as you develop your work plan. I imagine it could also include what the operations analysis document could look like. But once again, this is, retreats are meant to like kind of set the stage for what your work looks like for the coming year.
Okay, I'm still busy writing a little bit. Be with you in a second. Okay. Thank you, Councilwoman Roney, for that. I appreciate your comments as usual. And thank you, Amber, too. The other thing that I would like to bring up at this time, Amber, maybe you can give me some explanation on it, or we could go ahead and do it. But I know we're a subcommittee of the multimodal, and we would want to create a subcommittee for the retreat. Will we do that now, or just wait till later?
I think Paul had his hand up as well, and I think you can. I think we can formulate a subcommittee and have the planning discussion that you can report to the committee in the next meeting or the next couple meetings. I know Paul had his hand up as well.
Did he?
Yes.
It's not on my screen. Go ahead, Paul.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that retreats can be really very valuable. When I went to Denver to be the interim CEO at the Regional Transportation District in February of 2020, I quickly scheduled a retreat with the 15-member board, all elected by district, which is an interesting angle anyways. But we very quickly scheduled a retreat with the board, and we actually scheduled it for the Saturday before COVID came down on top of everybody. And so we went to an offsite location. We had a well-organized retreat. All the board members participated. And that was the last time I saw anybody in person for a long time. So I was very pleased that I got to at least meet all the board members and have initial conversations. But I think there's a lot of opportunities when you do a retreat. Right? I know that you're interested in some of the local issues. I think there are perhaps even some bigger issues that we could talk about, like, future service delivery. What are some of the alternate ways that service is being provided around the country? Things like looking at developing a bus rapid transit corridor and a real busy bus route. And so I think that I think your subcommittee idea is a good one, and I'd be happy to work with the subcommittee and put together a list of topics. And I may have some that I would suggest might be helpful. And but I think that's a great way to go, and I'd be happy to participate with the subcommittee and help them structure whatever they would like to see, and then maybe make some suggestions. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Kara has her hand up. Kara.
Yeah. I think it would be really helpful for a retreat just to, meet everyone in person, kind of set goals for the for our committee for like what we are hoping to like work on this year and kind of accomplish, and just kind of get everyone on the same page, especially as a new member. I feel like that would be very helpful to me, and would love to help with the planning stage if you're looking for volunteers for the subcommittee.
Yes, we are, Kara. You already volunteered for that. You're in mine. Bill, he has his hand up.
I just want to second what everybody's saying. I think a retreat is a great idea, and this committee should do it. And number one, I think we should establish a working group to manage it. And I just wanted to put in my 2 cents. I think it's a great idea. And I think we need to be careful, and the committee will have to be careful about trying to make sure that we arrange an agenda where there's some action items coming out of it, as opposed to just kumbaya and that kind of thing. I think it's important to make it a first step to something else. So that would be my 2 cents on that one. Thank you, Harvey.
Bill, as the council liaison and previous multimodal liaison to the transit committee, it would be really awesome to have a multimodal member on the retreat planning group. So just know that invitation is extended.
Well, thank you. I'll try, and I certainly will weigh in. I think it needs to be, I'm always happy to offer my input. If it's sometime this summer, I may be limited in terms of how much I can physically participate. If it's virtual, that's a different story. So I'll just leave it at that, and we'll see how nature takes its course. But thank you, Kim. I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's the way I was heading about you, Bill. I didn't want you to put. I know some of the responsibilities that you have already, and just like me, but I don't want you to add too much to your plate. But having your input will be greatly appreciated. Thank you. Okay. Any more input to that? Okay. Amber, she has her hand up.
I think once the subcommittee is established, we can kind of organize it that way. And Harvey, I think it is extremely beneficial because since 2019, most of these folks that are on the committee weren't on it previously. So it'll be a great opportunity for everybody to meet. We could possibly, in September of 22, we did an on-site visit to the operations facility. We have some new faces since then. So whatever we can do to assist the process, and it'll be great to have Paul assisting us as well to make this a successful endeavor.
Yeah, thank you for that input, Amber. Yes, that was the last time we did get together. And I also like to say the last time we did have a retreat, it was right before COVID came in October. Yeah. Okay. Joseph has his hand up.
Yeah, I don't know if you all saw the chat comment. I've had retreats before that are much more interactive. I'd suggest maybe considering all or part of the meeting being on a bus, rolling around the city, seeing some of the challenges and advantages we have here in Asheville. Certainly the venue would lend itself to a lot of group participation, and could also, other than the fact that we couldn't use screens and stuff, just maybe part of the meeting might be helpful in that regard. Just a thought.
Thank you, Joseph. As I always say, everyone's input is valuable, and thank you, committee members, for all of your input that I'm receiving now. It's great. I love it. I love it. Is there any more input anyone would like to add to our retreat moving forward? If not, we'll move along to old business. Bill has his hand raised up. Go ahead, Bill.
I propose we spend today identifying the working group and getting started. Why wait a month?
That was Amber's suggestion, that we wait a month or two.
Well, she also said go ahead and get started and see how it evolves. I just don't think it makes sense to wait. Everybody wants it. If we gain nothing from waiting, we get a lot from being a month further ahead. So that's my recommendation.
No, I believe the planning efforts would be beneficial, and to identify the folks on the subgroup. And then we can identify the subgroup or your working group can work with staff and Paul to identify the timing of it. But I think the initial planning and all of the items that y'all want to discuss, that the work can begin now within the committee.
So you're saying we can start today? By establishing a subcommittee?
I think you could, yeah.
Okay, Bill?
I propose and I nominate Kara to lead the working group and solicit input either during this meeting or subsequently, so within a week, for her to put together a working group team. And there's qualifications about that, I know. It has to be less than the size of our quorum, right? So I propose and I nominate Kara as the lead, and our ambition is to have it established within a week.
On that, Bill, I second that, but we had already, Kara and I had already talked about that. She and I were going, I was going to put the same thing you said in there.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Great.
So I'm behind you on that. I'm the third wheel then.
No, you're the lead wheel, Harvey. You're the lead wheel.
I'm gonna let Kara handle it. Yeah. Kara, you have something you want to say?
Harvey, you're the steering wheel.
All right now. So that's Kara, Bill, and me. That we have 7 members, so we have 4 that we can put in the subcommittee. So we need one more person to add to the subcommittee.
And Harvey, I probably need to decline, but I'll be a positive reinforcement. So I won't be official. That way somebody else can do it if they want, if that's okay.
I would say that it might be helpful to, if somebody has had experience working with retreats or extensive event planning around strategic planning, This is a great time to speak up and bring your professional and lived experience to this conversation.
I don't think we have one of those, Kim. But we'll do our
Well,
best.
as someone who's been in transit committee and multimodal committee retreats before, I'm happy to help if I can be of support.
Definitely, I was looking for that, your support, Kim. Definitely looking for your support. So in the meantime, I know hopefully I can get 2 more committee members to join. I'm quite sure Colin will, but he's on vacation right now. He got missing on me for vacation today.
So some things that are typical for work groups that work on retreats to identify are, what are the agenda items? How long should you spend talking about them? Who's going to facilitate? We do have a short list, I'm sure, of the city's typical facilitators.
Mm-hmm.
There's also a facilitation group in town where the person who previously facilitated our committee retreats is still active in the community. But usually you come up with the agenda and then the timeline, and kind of identify some logistics. Like, you're going to have an icebreaker. How are you going to, get folks comfortable talking? What are the agreements that you're going to agree to around things like rules for engaging in the retreat, and how you make sure everybody's taking a turn and listening and being able to be heard, things like that. It won't take months to do, but typically a retreat for this committee supplants the transit committee meeting. So for example, let's say that you're going to have one in September. You wouldn't have a transit committee meeting the same month, but you might cover some urgent items at the beginning of your retreat. So if anyone's worried about, like, oh my gosh, I've already signed up for too much, usually it would take the place of the transit committee meeting that month.
Okay, thank you for that advice, Kim. Nicole has her hand up, and then Joseph.
Yes, sir. According to the city clerk's office, it has to be less than a quorum, so you only need 3 people.
We have to have less than a quorum?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So that's 3. So you still on board, Bill, or you want me to wait on Colin?
Why don't you wait on Colin? If he stands down, if nobody else wants to, I'll sign up.
Okay. Unless there's somebody else on the committee that wants to join.
Yeah, Harvey?
Yes, Joseph.
As you know, I'm a MMTC liaison as well as Bill. I'd be happy to offer my assistance if it would be helpful. My problem is availability. I could spend a good part of the month of July. I will be returning home if that would be of any use.
Okay, appreciate it, Joseph. The only thing is, Joseph, you're making me mad being out there in California.
It's 95 degrees where I am right now.
Don't rub it in, Joe. Don't rub it in.
No, it's no fun.
Oh, okay. Okay. I'll hold you and Bill. I'm writing that down. Okay, as seconds. Okay. Thank you.
Wait, and also let's get our numbers right. The working group that we established, Joe, me, and Elise, and Jared are 4, and we went through the city clerk to do that number.
That's the same thing I was thinking, Bill.
So Nicole, I've got a mental conflict with the point you raised, and I just don't know what's right or wrong. But I know we do have a working group with 4 people on it, so we're either illegal or 4 is a good number. And
Jared's not a transit committee member. The working group, my understanding, falls under the transit committee.
Okay.
And so he's actually what could be considered external.
Yeah.
He's on the transit committee.
Yeah, that explains it. Okay.
He's planning and zoning liaison, right?
Yeah, the way It's the
Okay, got
that it was the same way that Nicole read it. Members of subcommittees are appointed by majority vote of all voting members of the committee. A subcommittee may be no more than 4 members.
And it's
Okay.
important to note that when you've got a work group, you can bring in outside folks outside of your committee if you need
Okay.
expertise or extra hands. So it's a really great way to engage members. Maybe if you're trying to engage future committee members for recruitment, or you need some specific skill sets for a very short period of time. But work groups are permitted to engage folks outside of the committee.
Okay, thank you, Kim.
Harvey, to add on to what
Go ahead, Nicole. I saw your hand.
Councilman Roney mentioned, according to the city clerk's office, external stakeholders can participate in working group meetings. There is no limit on the size of external partners.
Oh, that's good. Okay, that explains it. So can we have 4 people that are on committee or 3? It's 3 on committee and others, right?
Right. We
3.
right now have 7, so it has to be less than a quorum. So 3.
3. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like we got 3 with Harvey, Kara, and Joe.
Joe said he might not be able to.
Yeah, we may want Colin too, of course. Colin's input.
Yeah.
All right. Well, shall we go along with the idea from before that we let Kara take lead and sort out who the 3 people are in her capacity to do that?
Kara is, if she's willing to go ahead and go the extra mile, which I'm sure she can, because the things we've been talking about, the information that she's sent me last night. I think she would be the perfect candidate for taking lead on this. So I would go ahead and nominate her for. Would she be the lead? Just what would be a position name for her in that?
Normally it would be the work group chair.
Work group chair. Okay.
Yeah, you don't want to have a subcommittee, because then every single person has to be appointed and you have to have minutes and things. You just want to have a work group for a couple months that can outline logistics.
Okay, so we'll take a vote on that work group chair. Kim, in these work groups, do they have vice chairs or just work group chair and that they run the meeting?
Typically for work groups like this, where you have a very short time frame and a very specific purpose for like a retreat, you're only going to be meeting maybe 2 or 3 times. You just need to have the chair as a point person for the contact. It's not as formal as a subcommittee.
Okay. Carol, would you be able to want to accept the nomination for being chair on the work group? Kara?
Yes, can you hear me, Harvey?
I can now.
Okay. Yes, I'd be happy to.
Okay. May I have a motion to accept Kara as being the chair for the working group subcommittee?
Yes, Harvey, I'll move.
May I have a second?
Second, this is Bill.
Okay. Would everybody, well, I'll go ahead. I say yay. Sandy Aldridge.
Yes, yay.
Joseph Chesler.
Yes, sir.
Bill Loftus.
Yes.
Kara.
Yes.
And Elaine Barnes.
Yes.
Thank you. By resounding, overwhelming, you're elected, Kara, as the chair of the subcommittee. All right. Now, moving on to Old business. Increase art service frequency on two southern routes, S3, S6. Discussion on drafting a recommendation for the multimodal commission advocating for increased frequency on routes S3 and S6. I was wanting to do this because I don't think we've had, the committee itself has not officially put to the multimodal commission draft of our recommendations for the expansion of the S3, the frequency of the S3 and S6, and the funding. So I think it would be appropriate today for us to send that draft to the multimodal. That way they can send it on to council and council can send it on to county. Joseph and then Kara.
Yeah, Harvey, Amber, isn't this the pilot project we've all been talking about and is strongly encouraged?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe a status of that would be helpful before we vote.
Yeah, because we necessarily want to put our stamp on it. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think that's a good.
Amber?
Certainly can't hurt.
I can provide an update, and currently with the fiscal year 25 budget and the lack of resources and just the way the budget has turned out, there's not been additional funding for this that has been identified. As we were discussing, and Harvey was in the office a few weeks ago, and there's been a lot of discussion within this, and we know that the transit committee is very supportive of it. We just didn't find that official line from the transit committee to multimodal. So Harvey requested for an official recommendation to be sent to multimodal. I believe everyone here has discussed it. We've discussed it. I believe it started in November of last year. The discussion started on the pilot project. And it's important. We understand the need for additional frequency just with the budget constraints this fiscal year. It was not identified for funding.
Okay. So we can vote on sending this motion to multimodal. Is that what you're saying, Amber?
Sorry. Yes. I mean, you brought it up. We couldn't find the official line. It did not get brought up to the multimodal committee, your formal approval and recommendation for the additional frequency. And you requested that it be a formal motion that they received it.
Yes, that's what we want to do tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any well, Kara, go ahead. And then Bill.
Yeah, on the funding, it sounded it was like, I think it was last month or maybe 2 months ago, the city council briefing. It was sounding like, and Amber, you might be able to speak more on this, that the county had money available that they hadn't spent that was almost at risk of not being spent. And just from watching that city council meeting brief, I was like, if there's money and we want to do a pilot program and we're only running every 90 minutes, it kind of seems like a really easy no-brainer. I know Maggie was the one who mentioned that pot of money. Is there really money there?
That is a discussion. The city and the county have tried to hold a meeting, the city manager's office and the county manager's office, and it got canceled due to there was an emergency that came up. And there is some 5307 funding, but the staff we haven't been able to meet to discuss the partnership opportunities possibly that it would bring.
But sorry to interrupt.
I'm sorry, they're working to reschedule it, but the funding is not available to the city currently. Like, we do not have availability to utilize funding for the project. It would have to be a discussion and a partnership with the county.
So as a transit committee, how would we go about encouraging the multimodal and encouraging city council to go ask for that money? Because if it seems like if there's money there, we should ask for it. And as a group, we should ask for it.
There's a lot more to it than just, I think the notion of the increased frequency is extremely, if that is what you're advocating for, that be moved to multimodal. There needs to be discussion between the city and the county on some of these topics for this partnership.
Yes.
So is that discussion what we should be advocating for, or yeah?
That discussion is going to happen. We're working on planning for it. The city manager's office is working on the reschedule of the meeting to talk about some of these opportunities. I think what was brought forth by the chair was that you provide the recommendation that you still feel the need for the frequency and for possibly the city and the county to talk about the S3 and S6 service and the service delivery for the frequency.
Yes. Does that satisfy your question, Kara?
Yeah, I hope so. I don't have a lot of answers in terms of when we could utilize the funding, if the funding is available to utilize. It's been identified. We've tried to hold a meeting, and that was to be rescheduled. And we do have plans to have these discussions.
Okay, Bill, and
Yeah.
then back to Kara.
Kara, if you got a follow on, go ahead, and then I'll follow up from you.
Okay, go ahead, Kara, and then back to Bill.
Yeah, I guess just my question was, I think that was a city council debrief from like 1 or 2 months ago. So just, I guess I'm trying to figure out, how do we as transit committee advocate for it? Because we all ride the bus, and waiting 90 minutes is, I mean, it's hard, right? Like, how do we advocate for this as transit committee members is really my question. And does that look like a recommendation? Yeah, because it's been 2 months, so waiting for it to be rescheduled. It's tough to hear, honestly.
It was actually, the meeting was scheduled. I think it was when Paul was on board. So it was like the first week in May that the meeting was scheduled. And there's 11 to 15 people that are attending this meeting apparently. So I would like to have the meeting as well.
Thanks, that adds clarity. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Kara. Bill?
Well, I'm just totally confused. So I
get
thought
it.
this goes back to November. The point was there's an available $300,000 in the 24 budget that was reserved for a study in which we were going to team with the county, and they declined. So we have $300,000 that's not spent. And the idea was, there were two ideas came out of using that money. One was do this pilot for S3 or S6 is one idea. And another idea was we have another study for cost improvements and so forth.
Mhm.
That's where I thought this lies. Now, Amber, you're saying, no, that's not right. We're waiting for 25 money to do this pilot. So I'm confused about that. I'm also confused, and why do we have to partner with the county if it's our route we are going to be improving frequency on? So those are my two questions. Please explain the funding and the partnership.
The funding was not identified. The committee requested it to be out of the $300,000 that staff had the recommendation to provide a comprehensive operational analysis, which is dearly, and it is much needed for the transit system, to look at route level segment improvements and immediate and short-term improvements for service delivery. We are having the realities of the budget bill is that we want to look at efficiency so we do not have to do any cuts in service. So the S3 and S6 expansion pieces did not happen for the fiscal year 25 budget. They're not.
I'm
in
talking
there
about
right now.
24. Is the $300,000 gone?
No, it's not. We're utilizing it for an operational analysis to
So is
look
that
at
operational
service
analysis,
improvements.
has that been approved?
It was identified in the council agenda briefing.
Right. And we heard the discussion on it, and it sounded like it was going south.
No, we were told to move forward with the comprehensive operational analysis. April
Okay.
18th.
Then, so what we're hearing is that the transit committee doesn't have any input on whether to use that money for a pilot study or for an operations analysis. That's what I'm hearing you say. Is that correct?
That I do not. Staff's recommendation has always been to do the comprehensive operational analysis.
So where does transit committee weigh in? How do we weigh in on what our preferences are?
I think Paul has his hand raised.
Yeah, let me tackle that one because
Thank you.
I sense your frustration, but the issues that we're mixing issues here. Number one, any potential money to expand the two south routes, that money is with the county and the county controls it. And so I can assure you that the meeting that the city manager had set up with the county manager and the other host of folks was specifically to talk about those dollars and to specifically talk about the county's partnership, with the city on expanding public transit. And, I have the wisdom of being here 3 weeks, and I think that we're dealing a lot with personalities and communications that simply need to be improved. And so I think once we get communications improved and we build better relationships, I think we'll have a much better working relationship. But the honest answer is that the city doesn't have the money to expand the two south routes. It doesn't exist. It's not in the 25 budget. The separate money that you're talking about, the $300,000, was initially designed to partner with the county to do a joint region-wide transportation plan. The county basically walked away from that. They said they had other needs for that money. And I'm just, like I say, I'm telling you what I've learned in 3 weeks.
Keith Keith is wanting to resound his opinion. Go ahead, Keith.
No, I think it's Kim. I think it's Kim whose hand is up.
No, Keith had a big old box and Keith wanted to say something.
I think he just said he'd be back in a minute.
Okay, Kim, go ahead. Now I can't get anybody. Kim, go ahead.
Sorry, I thought I might add a couple extra resources to what Paul and Amber had offered as far as a timeline. So, yes, we did allocate funding in this budget cycle, which we are in the very last, 30 days of, to partner with the county on a study of working together, right? And the county did not meet us in that endeavor. However, every single person who rides the ART system is riding in Buncombe County because Asheville is in Buncombe County. We know this. And additionally, the Asheville Rides Transit System provides services outside of the city limits. So in a way, we are providing Asheville Buncombe transportation already. So what I hear staff adding to the conversation, I know that there's some new transit committee members, so I just want to let you know, we have funding for transit that comes from our city budget, which is majority property taxes from inside the city limits. We have some state funding, but especially we have some federal funding, and that federal funding flows through our Metropolitan Planning Organization. You'll hear terms like 5307 and 5310. Additionally, the county charges us to provide the required paratransit service. So these are the kinds of conversations about where does our transit funding come from? Who makes decisions on these parts of the budget? this would be so helpful to go over in a retreat, so everybody's working from the same sheet of music, and we're all able to play the same song. Another thing that I would say is that what I hear staff letting us know is that we have not identified the South Asheville service in this budget cycle. However, we could advocate for the county to partner with us in funding. And there's a few different strategies around that. There's outside advocacy groups, and then the decision-making point would be the city council as well. So when we talk at the retreat about the kinds of funding strategies for short and long range planning, these would be the kinds of questions that we could get some follow-up so that folks can help us know, like, do we need to dig into 5307 funds? Does everybody know what the MPO's scope of work is for the Metropolitan Planning Organization and the role they play for transit? I know that some of the concern that I hear here, we might be leaving people out of the conversation. So I just wanted to add a little bit more conversation. Additionally, because we are shifting to the city study, or the city doing a study on our own without the county, I have in my notes that the Transit Committee already made a recommendation to the multimodal, recommending to study through service. So what I hear y'all are talking about now is making an additional recommendation to multimodal to instruct the city council around a conversation to be had with the county. That is totally within the scope of the Transit Committee's work. Just make sure that you're directing the flow of traffic. So Transit Committee recommends to multimodal, and then from there you could make a recommendation. Unfortunately, the Transit Committee was demoted underneath multimodal back in like 2016. So you can't advise council directly, but you can make a recommendation that multimodal do that.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was trying to do. Joseph has his hand up.
Thank you, Kim, for that summary. Amber, I'm confused also. As a member of the MTC, I understood, as Bill eloquently said, that the 300,000 was the city's share of the joint city-county planning effort to join forces, and that was at the city's full discretion. The community action groups and MMTC joined in a recommendation to use that for the pilot project in S3 and X6. And yet the understanding I have now is that the city, in its budget deliberations, chose to support staff's recommendation. I don't remember ever being informed of that. I didn't attend the budget hearing, but it seems a bit, well, it is surprising is all I'm saying. And we hope that effort will find funding in future if it's no longer available. Notwithstanding the need for the operational analysis, Amber, as you stated, we want the system to work clearly. And if it doesn't, then these pilot projects and other initiatives, end up suffering. But anyway, I was confused by your summary.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to confuse anyone. I just, there's a lot of, in terms of the partnership, and this was brought to this agenda item was brought forth by the chairman. The city staff did not put this recommendation on. So to provide a little additional information, I'm sorry if I created confusion. At the last meeting, we discussed staff's recommendation for the comprehensive operational analysis, and you all discussed that you're still advocating for frequency, which is completely and understood your ability to do that. But the staff's recommendation for the operational analysis is still a needed item for us to look at the efficiencies of the system to make immediate or short term, and also look at our transit master plan for some realistic financial estimates to move the system forward and what's going to be needed. I mean, it's all a lack of funding resources just from fiscal year 24 to fiscal year 25. And it's been discussed in this committee as well. There's a lot more. We've had to put it like 1.5 million of the general fund more that was being plugged with ARPA money that is no longer available. So we are dealing with some financial and resource constraints in terms of just running our base level services.
Probably.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. Bill?
So just a simple check. My understanding was that the frequency pilot was to be earmarked for 24 funds. I'm hearing from both Amber and Paul, nope, it's supposed to be for 25 funds. What's the answer to that question? Is it for 24 funds or 25 funds? Because back in November when this started, there were no 25 funds.
Right. I don't, it's not earmarked in 24 or 25.
Yeah.
Right,
The money doesn't exist.
Right. Excuse me, I used the wrong term. It wasn't earmarked for 24 because it never got decided, but there was $300,000 to use. So there were developments in process to use it for either the pilot or the operations analysis. So is that $300,000 to be taken from the 24 fund or the 25 fund? That's my question. My first question.
Well, Amber, that's in the 24 budget, is it not?
Yes.
Right. Right.
Okay, so there is $300,000 to be spent that still doesn't have a purpose, a decided purpose. Is that correct?
Well, actually, we've been instructed by the city management to proceed with the comprehensive operational analysis, to issue the request for proposals, and to move forward and implement that. Those are our instructions in the transportation department that come from the city manager, from the council. So those are the facts. And,
okay, so the 300,000 is gone. So to answer my question, the 300,000 can no longer be spent for anything else, is what I'm hearing.
Well, unless we come up and are conservative and don't spend it all. I mean, there may be some left over, but I don't think we should. I don't think that's a good plan. I think the important point is that, the staff, Amber and everybody else, is super supportive of what you all are trying to do. We're frustrated by the fact that we don't have the funding to do this, and that we are struggling to find ways to be more creative. I think working with the county is certainly one of those ways, and that's why the city manager and the county manager are trying to organize a meeting. There are funds that are available out there that the county controls and other subrecipients control that we would like to have better cooperation. And those are the things that we're trying to do. I know it's frustrating, but I mean, our budget was cut for next year. So not only did we not get any additional funds for transit, we're actually getting fewer dollars. And that's just the sense of the city. And throughout the city, I think council member Roney can speak better on that than me, but I think pretty much everybody's taken a haircut this year. It's frustrating, and I understand.
Well, and Harvey, if I can answer.
Go ahead, Bill.
So, Paul, just so you know, everybody that I talked to wanted both. We were between two chosen outcomes, but we only had $300,000. And everybody I talked to individually on the transit committee, not all, but selectively, would have preferred we do the frequency pilot. The biggest frustration rising up for me right now is we didn't have a chance to share that recommendation. And we're asked to contribute. We're asked to use our volunteer time. We do working groups. We try to improve it. And it's been months now, and we hadn't even had a chance to share our opinion. That's very frustrating, and it shouldn't be that way.
No, I agree,
Yeah.
and I understand where you're coming from. I've been here 3 weeks, and I'm saying I'm committed to working with you to participate in these meetings, and because it's no secret in public transit today, the greatest way to build ridership is through frequency. There are lots of things you can do, but the better frequency, the more frequency that you have, you will build ridership, and that's the answer. And Amber and the other members of the staff absolutely support that, and they're trying to get there, and they're advocating through the budget process to provide the additional dollars. They're working hard to develop a discussion with the county, with the other sub-recipients, so we can get all of these dollars into play. It's a communications issue that a lot of people are working to get together. I feel like we're going in the right direction, but I can understand your frustration. I would feel the same way. So I wish I could tell you something that's gonna relieve your frustration, but other than a couple of Advil, I don't have an answer for that right now. I'm going to work towards that. We're all going to work towards that together. But I can't solve the problem tonight. Neither can Amber or anybody else.
I understand that.
So.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Paul.
Yes,
Kim has her hand up.
Yeah, thank you. So some of the things that I'm hearing now is communication goes out, but then it isn't like received, and there's not like a back and forth flow. Some of the answers to the recommendations that you've made were heard, did make it up through the chain, and we had a recommendation that came through the Planning and Economic Development Committee. Excuse me, pollen. The PED Committee of Council. What I'm hearing we could do better is communicating back to the Transit Committee that your recommendation is not going to have action. So a lot of times we might come back to you if there's going to be an action taken, but not if there isn't. One of the improvements that you could have as far as communication systems is coming out of the retreat. Say one of the action items we want to have is when we have work groups, we want to have work group reports. An example of this is the Urban Forestry Commission. So let's say you have a transit master plan and frequency report back every single transit committee meeting. And it would be like, we made a recommendation out. What was the response? Did this land on a multimodal transportation commission agenda? Did the recommendation go all the way up to council? And if not, how do we get that unclogged? And if you have those regular reports at your transit committee, then I think you'll see an improvement in the communications, and that'll add the value to your work. As you mentioned, y'all show up for a reason and because you care. So I want to make sure that that's valued too, and our communications can be better. Also, I will say that it has been a challenge over the past maybe year and a half, 2 years to make sure that we have regular transit committee meetings, that we're relying on those regular schedules, and to have enough members for a quorum. And look at today. We have a quorum, we have enough members, everyone's engaged. So we want to like build that trust and keep y'all at the table by making sure that we're getting that back and forth communication. I do think a retreat will help.
Amber has her hand. Thank you, Kim. Amber has her hand up.
I appreciate the comments, Kim, Bill, and Paul, and everyone who's been, we've been in this discussion. I also want to point out just the consistent vacancies in the transit division. For almost a year, we were at 50% capacity. We've undergone a major triennial review. Like there's just a lot of lack of resources from staff time. So the positive thing is that we are moving in the right direction. In January and in February, we filled positions. So we are at, there's 4 staff members. We also oversee the grants management of all of the urbanized area funding, and also oversee the contractor and look at our subrecipients and do transit planning. So we are fortunate now that we are able to have more hands on deck to assist and to provide you all some additional information. And the reason why we didn't have some meetings is because we were undergoing the triennial review, and we just got done with an FTA drug and alcohol audit, which has taken a large amount of time from staff. And I appreciate the staff because everybody is working very hard and diligently to try to the FTA Fed requirements don't stop when you don't have staff. They're still mandated, and the items still need to be followed up on, and the audits still take place. So we are full staffed. That's a positive thing right now.
Joseph has his hand. Thank you.
Amber, just to follow up, you said 50% deficiency or 50%
Vacancy.
vacancy. But your last comment there, you are at full staffing. Is
Yeah,
that
we're
for the
just-
administrative? That's the administrative staff?
Yeah.
The 50% is more the operational staff? Okay.
No, we have 4 people on our staff. So it's what administers the transit program as well as our transit funding program. So, and we've been onboarding from January to February and the following months.
Okay. Thank you. We love what you do with what you have.
We appreciate the committee, and as Paul said, we support frequency. We support the operations analysis. We need both, but right now, in terms of the budget atmosphere and the challenges, there's a much needed look at all of the service implementation that we put on the street in 2020 to assess that, make sure it's working for our community, and look at the efficiencies and possible opportunities that we can see all within the guise of the transit master plan and the phasing of those much needed improvements and expansions. But we have to identify resources to be able to provide those and make them sustainable.
Right. Harvey, if I could just follow up briefly.
Go ahead, Joseph.
Amber, does that operational efficiency planning effort include route planning and route determinations?
Yes, it will look at a route segment level basis. It will look at the route segments. There's also public engagement, and I see a lot of opportunity for this committee to be able to be a stakeholder and a partner within that process. Travel patterns have changed since COVID. Our transit master plan was developed before COVID. So things have shifted. We've seen some routes that have completely recovered and expanded, and some we've seen that have only gained about 40% of the ridership. So we need to take a look and adjust our sails and kind of take a bigger zoom out to see, do we straighten out some routes so we can put bigger buses on? Do we use different vehicles? How do we also key in the sustainability aspect of that? And how can we put low to no emission vehicles on our routes with the challenges we have right now with our road network and not being able to put anything larger than a 30-foot bus? So these will all be identified, and we will keep you informed and as well as a partner within that process as we develop the scope. Thanks, Joe.
Amber for president. Okay.
Yeah, sure. I don't think so.
Thank you, Amber. Bill, go ahead.
So my biggest worry about the study, it sounds like you're going to do it. 300,000 is not much money. You've identified a lot of objectives to get out of $300,000. My recommendation is you minimize your scope so you can get something out of it. If you try to do everything, I don't think it's possible with $300,000 of consulting money. I mean, how much did the master plan in 2018 cost? I'm sure it was much more than 300,000. We're talking about doing a survey. We're talking about basically revising the master plan based on current traffic plans. That's just more than $300,000 worth of work for a consultant that makes those rates. So, I mean, you're going to do it. My recommendation is minimize the scope and get the most important thing out of it and use that for a next step, because I don't think you're going to have a meaningful outcome if you try to do everything that's been discussed in this scope.
Paul, go ahead.
I think that's good advice, Bill. $300,000, it'll buy a fair amount of work, but you're absolutely right. We have to make sure that we prioritize, and that would be a good topic for this committee to kick around and help us to make sure that we are, in fact, prioritizing the issues as you see them. We know that there are certain things that we need to do. We need to look at the buses that are available to us. We need to look at the route structure, where the ridership is continuing. I questioned why we can't use bigger than 30-foot buses in the city, and people who know better than me, the engineers, are saying no, it's probably true. And so I've never worked with a city that's the case, and so we need to look at that. There's a lot of issues. I think one of the things I'd like to see is what we've been talking around tonight, is the funding and the finances to support transit. I'd love to have them take a look at that and look at all the money that's going to the subrecipients, and where it's being spent and where it's just being sat on, how that might be reallocated to the principal transit provider, which is ART. But we're working on that. Amber's has put together, an initial draft of what we should do. We've agreed to provide the city manager's office with a timetable for issuing that, so that we can move that quickly. We're working on that. Amber and I have set aside several 2-hour blocks of time just to focus on that. And also, the other big issue that's coming up is the operating contract. As I'm sure you know, the operating contract with the RATP Dev Corporation, we're about to enter the 8th and final year of that contract. So that contract is going to be good through June 30th of 2025. And we need to develop the RFP, get it out, get proposals, get people an entity selected, or renew with the existing one, whichever decision is made, and get all the numbers in so that the city can put that into their budget for FY26, which needs to be done by spring. So that's another big heavy lift that, when Amber talks about, we're at 50% strength, that means there's 2 of them instead of 4. Now we've got 4, and she was one of the 2. And so now we have 4, and we have 4 great people, and everyone's working hard. But I think that if this committee, wants to have an agenda item and put down the most important things, I think we would welcome that input. And then we'll come back and say, these are the items you suggested, which we prioritized, and these are the ones that didn't make it. And, and then that's communicating. That's relationship building and communicating. And we can only all be successful the better we communicate. And it's on us to make sure that we're communicating with you and keeping you advised. But, Amber and one other staff member have just been overwhelmed with getting stuff done. So bottom line, that's it.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Kara?
Paul, it sounds like you and Amber already have a draft for what that is going to look like. Can you share that with the transit committee?
That was my next question.
Yeah, no, I think we have bullet points, and we're trying to build a timetable around it. But yes, we will share that with the transit committee.
Great, thank you.
It's a goal document that was just established at the end of last week. So, and it was just provided to the city manager's office on Thursday or Friday.
Right. So it's
bullet
very,
points
very
work for us.
Okay. Thank you. So in the long run, Amber, how should I say this? It wouldn't do any good for us to do a draft recommendation to the multimodal, because the money is being allocated for the operational analysis, comprehensive operational analysis.
I still think it's beneficial, and I was not here for the November meeting. I was sick with COVID. So I know you all discussed this with Jessica initially, and this discussion was initially brought up. And Kim did indicate we were looking to make sure that it got, the question was, did the recommendation get to multimodal? And it was Nicole and I here at the time. So we wanted to, Harvey requested us to put this on. I still think from a transit committee standpoint, the advocacy, whether the funding is there or not, that the importance is there. So there was a real big focus on this $300,000, which was only one-time money, and it really wouldn't have created sustainability for the frequency. So I guess and I would ask, Council Member Roney and Bill on what the multimodal committee, and I've only been here a year and a half. So I guess from the instances of a transit committee recommendation to multimodal, what would be the best step forward just to make sure that they're heard? And this was a recommendation from the chair.
Amber brings up a good point that we're talking now about a different kind of recommendation. So I think it's good to update it. For example, if the transit committee were to make a recommendation that the number one priority for the city and the county partnership is to look at expansion of or additional frequency on the S3 and S6 corridor, it could be because of development patterns, because we know frequency improves ridership, but also reliability for riders. Something along those lines, and to make the recommendation to multimodal to recommend it to the city council so that it gets unstuck out of the transit committee and gets to multimodal. That's where Bill and Joe, if y'all could, or Joseph, if y'all could at the multimodal level, when you have those multimodal report backs from each committee, re-elevate it to the multimodal, then report back what the response was, if it got stuck at multimodal or if multimodal made a recommendation to council. Then you have a better picture of what that communication flow looks like.
So wouldn't it be better to go ahead and draft a recommendation for advocating for frequency and funding of the S3 and 6?
Yes, and because I think what I'm hearing you say is, and I think Amber brought up a good point, not to necessarily identify specific funding, but to prioritize the frequency on the corridor.
Yeah, I think
so. You have multiple phases in the transit master plan around evening service and Inca Candler and a downtown circular. There's so much, but even in the next phase of the transit master plan, the S3 and S6 are lumped in with other things. So this is really just helping to pop those out as the most important next step.
Okay. And that keeps us at the table.
It keeps this on the forefront. I mean, there are a lot of advocacy groups, and you all have provided the work. And though you are all looking at this one little pot of money, but I mean, it's still a major issue and a sustainability issue that we want to move forward with. That I think from the transit committee, from what I've heard and taken part in, and what I've listened, and what I would think, I can't structure your recommendations, but I think Kim made a good point.
Yeah. So I want to make sure we were considered in our opinions and what we were looking for in the long run. Okay. So in the increase in the old businesses, just drafting the recommendation for the multimodal commission. I make a motion that we draft the recommendation to multimodal for advocating for increased frequency and funding of the S3 and S6. May I have a motion to accept this?
Well, lacking others, I'll be happy to move it.
Thank you, Joseph. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Carol. Okay, thank you, committee. Moving on down the agenda for today.
Hey, Harvey, just as a point of order, because you have a virtual meeting,
I forgot to vote
you
on
need to do a roll call.
As soon as you said that, Kim, the words kept coming out of your mouth. I said, I know she's checking me again. I said, thank you, Kim. All right. May I have, let me see, let me call for a vote. Harvey Harrell, yes. Sandy Aldridge. Sandy Aldridge. Joseph Chestner.
Affirmative, yes.
Bill Loftus.
Oh. I pass.
That counts as a yes. Carol Wheeler.
Yes.
Elaine Barnes.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. That will go on to multimodal for their consideration. And thank you, Kim. Okay, that's it for old business. Transit committee member updates and rider experience. I don't need everybody to talk at one time, but hopefully my committee members will. Colin's not here today. Transit committee member updates and rider experience. Tara, go ahead.
First one's a real positive. One of my friends was stuck at a car dealership and the car shuttle was like taking forever. So she checked her transit app, saw that the bus was coming and bussed on through town. And so she just had a really positive experience and was glad it was running. And it was kind of right where she needed it, which was awesome. And then for me personally, I work up in Weaverville and my car broke down last week. And man, it's a long bike ride up to Weaverville.
You know,
So,
that's right.
no real comment on the bus system, just more of I would love to have transit going up there because that was a 55-minute bike ride and it was tough. So just want to throw that out there. That was my experience last week, but that's all for me.
That increased those leg muscles, Kara.
Oh, I was tired.
You're young though. You can handle that. You just needed an extra water bottle.
And then she had to turn around and come home.
Ooh.
I was happy to work late that day.
Thank you, Kara. Joseph?
Yeah, thanks, Harvey. While we have Paul's attention, Paul, you mentioned the notion of larger buses in Asheville in your comments. And I just wanted to remind the committee that through the work that our working group has come up with, there's possibly some options more in the center of town that might utilize smaller buses with more frequency. Obviously, it's an operational consideration and financial, but just don't want to lose sight of the fact that a blended fleet using smaller buses in more constrained areas certainly is something that has value to consider.
Yes, absolutely. And that's exactly a great strategy that's being employed around the country. Amber said earlier that, a lot of things changed since COVID. The ridership patterns in this country have been thrown up in the air and they're settling down very differently from where they were. It's no longer, peak period from 6 to 9 in the morning and 3 to 6 in the afternoon. It has spread out and there's a lot of opportunities for efficiency where we see a lot more demand weekends and on nights. But you're absolutely right. I mean, if the ideal situation would be to have, like a tree trunk. You've got branches that are small vehicles working the neighborhoods and taking people out to the main bus route that runs frequently and has larger routes. I don't know if that works here. That's one of the things that we want to ask the COA folks if that type of approach works. Going hand in hand, of course, is the funding, because when you start looking at the cost of running the smaller vehicles, your cost per passenger goes up significantly. The cheapest service is a large bus on a fixed route running regularly, and your cost per passenger is much lower. So you have to balance out the two. You have to make decisions on how you want to spend your money. And that's one of the things that hopefully with the COA we'll get some ideas from the successful consultants to do that. But that's a very valid point, Joseph, and you're absolutely right.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Joseph, and thank you, Paul. Okay, are there any more transit committee member updates and rider experiences? Well, y'all know I got something all the time. Okay. On May 13th, I visited the Transit Center downtown. The facilities outside and inside were in order as far as cleanliness. The route maps were in stock sufficiently for the patrons. Had a chance to talk with several of the drivers. I saw Kevin, Craig, Diane, talked with Tammy and Diane. Saw the other bus driver, Z. He was driving. I waved at him while he was pulling out of the station. And the driver seemed to be in a good mood, except for currently, I don't believe we have a safety officer, or they're in transition. The drivers have safety officer issues. And then the other thing is payroll, the staffing. I don't think they have a permanent person for the staffing. That's what the drivers told me on the 13th. And the buses, I inspected several of them. They were clean, and the overhead literature was there for the riders viewing. And since we have another section devoted to staff giving some updates on the 13th, I'm gonna not mention everything that happened on the 13th on Fair Free Day, but the 13th through the 17th was Strive Beyond. Also on that day, it was a travel training day where a group of city, county agencies conducted conducted a rider training and information to the riders, particularly the elderly. Also, it was the Fair Free Day. The agencies involved were ARC, Asheville Rides Transit, Disability Partners, Land to Sky, Land to Sky Regional Council, AARP, Mountain Region, Just Economics, Mountain Mobility, Mountain True, Apple County, and ambassadors for that day necessarily were John Bassarti at Land of Sky, very nice gentleman. Councilwoman Kim Roney, Harvey Harrell, myself, travel training member, ART chairman, and Chris Whitlock, transit planning and project coordinator. But it was a good day and a great day, but with the amount of people that we would have liked to have had, they weren't that, the numbers weren't up, but through continued service in providing these travel training outings, I'm quite sure we're going to have more. We'll have more people participating in those. And Keith, I saw your hand up as soon as I start talking. So you can go ahead. As soon as I said payroll, your hand, I see.
Good evening, and thank you, Chairman Harold. And I also want to welcome Director Ballard, as well as Councilwoman Ms. Barnes. I don't want to get ahead of myself. When I heard about safety and the platform, I think it was an opportunity for me to chime in at this moment. We still have a Director of Safety. Lisa Galvin is still with us. However, we will be going through a transition, but at no given moment will we be without a director of safety or someone to continue our operations of being a safety manager. So that is being addressed at the local level, and we've also engaged corporate for a more permanent fix. We are going out to do a nationwide recruitment for Ms. Galvin upon her departure from us, but she still is on the roll. Ms. Abraham, she has been upholding our payroll manager duties, but we've also have applied training to our HR administrator to take over some of those duties in the way that they should be within that silo of an HR administrator. So I did want to just address those 2 points. But I am extremely happy to hear that your experience at the transit center was pleasant. Over the past 30 days, we've taken the initiative to pull up the weeds, make sure that the LED screens are working properly. We have put in orders for additional maps, which will be stocked. And we've also taken the opportunity, as we are sprucing up the platform, to be better partners with the condo association across the street at 45 Ashland. I did reach out to the property manager, and we looked at days and times that we'll begin to pressure wash the platform. So we're very excited that that will be something to further beautify and be better community partners with not only the condo owners and the association, but also the community that we serve. So extremely glad that your experience was good. So thank you. And I will have other talking points when the time arises if I did want to chime in at this opportune moment. Thank you, Chairman Harold.
Okay, Keith, I was wanting to go about one thing that you did mention when I was up there on Sunday during the platform washing, and they leave the hoses out and then they just leave them there and they're like, he's been gone for 15 minutes and hoses snaked all the way halfway up the platform. I said, really?
Okay, and one, it poses, of course, a tripping hazard. We will be I will address that with our interim director of maintenance, Scott Young. He's done a phenomenal job in keeping us afloat. However, we still are going to go out and do a nationwide search for a permanent replacement. But Scott Young has done a remarkable job in keeping things, but we'll certainly keep that in mind. And we're looking for times such as Sunday at 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock, when it poses less of an inconvenience to the passengers and safety hazards. In June, 2nd and 4th Sundays of the month, starting between 6 o'clock p.m. and 8 o'clock, that's when we'll begin to pressure wash the platform. But anything that needs to be done outside of those days and times, we'll certainly address that. But we regret that experience.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Kim did have her hand up.
I'll just be quick because I've already taken up enough of your time, but I just wanted to say thank you to Harvey for being a transit ambassador with me for the Strive Beyond Week. Those partners for Strive Beyond include the Land of the Sky, AARP of Western North Carolina, Disability Partners, the Council on Aging, Mountain True, Just Economics, Better Buses Together. So it was really exciting, even though we had a small turnout. It was good outcomes because we now have 2 new transit ambassadors who can share information with the people they serve with how to ride the bus effectively. They were excited to learn about the transit app and how to schedule your trip in advance on Google Maps. So our open source data is a really helpful tool, being able to see where your bus is at on the route, because the GPS monitoring is so helpful. So if anyone on the transit committee wants more information on how to be a transit ambassador for future events like that, and be able to, be that transit liaison in our community, Harvey or I can make that connection with you for future events. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you, Kim. Keith, there's another thing that I would like to say about the buses. Despite all, we've only had like 6 days that it hasn't rained in Asheville. I looked around that Monday and I saw so many clean, pretty buses up there. I said, boy, we looking good, sure enough. I mean, the buses was shining. I said, really? I said, after all of the rain, we only had 6 clear days so far this whole month. And I said, wow, transit doing good.
Well, we certainly appreciate that, and I will continue to share that with my team, give them kudos and and their praise of their accomplishments. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. One more thing, Keith.
Yes, sir.
That was the first time every driver that I saw had a smile on their face. That was a good thing.
Oh, what day was this? And make sure they were doing everything right going forward. So we can have a smile. Okay, the 13th.
Everybody has a smile on their face.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving forward, are there any more transit committee member updates and rider experiences? I don't see any hands. Okay. All right. Moving on to departmental updates. City staff monthly transit update memo. Staff will provide an update on recent activities. More than likely, that's Amber.
That would be me. And I provided a memo that's got some links. I'm not going to take up much of your time because you can read the memo, or feel free to ask questions about it later, or email me. Just some of the key activities that staff has been working on the last couple months that I'm extremely grateful and proud of the work that's being taken place is our wrapping up of our triennial review audit. The final report was sent to us the end of February. Our responses related to the deficiencies and our corrective actions are due at the end of May. Some of those corrective actions have taken longer, and for us to work on our grants management and subrecipient monitoring policies. Grant staff has taken and provided and participated in a subrecipient workshop for our subrecipients for the urbanized area funding, as well as the targeted disabled and elderly funding that took place on the 18th. All of these are in correlation of just properly managing and administering the grant funds that come into our region, which is our responsibility as the designated recipient. Some of those activities also involved hard work from our staff on inactive grants and closing out grants and making sure the funds are being spent in a timely manner. So we've been working with our subrecipients. Those are all really important steps for us to move forward with proper stewardship of the funds and grants management and subrecipient oversight. Another key activity that we have worked on is the FTA was on site February 22nd through the 24th, and they provided an FTA drug and alcohol audit to our subcontractors. When it rains, it pours, all the fun stuff happens. And they were on site at RATP Dev, as well as Buncombe County Mountain Mobility, who provides our paratransit service. And the review, Chris Whitlock worked on that. Just been here a month, and the review went very well. Very few deficiencies, just real minor. And we're really thankful for our partners and our subcontractors for such a successful audit in terms of that. Feel free to read the memo. If there's any questions, let me know. There's one thing that I'm really excited to share with you, and Chris is going to be next on the agenda, is that Chris we were listening to some of the comments you've had about looking at ridership reports, and Chris updated how we are presenting our ridership information to you as a committee. So I'm going to pass that on to Chris unless you have any questions for me.
Yes, I do.
Yes.
I have a picture for you, Amber.
Yeah.
Isn't there, when the drug and alcohol people came through, isn't there some follow-up work for them that they suggested?
Yes, there's some follow-up that needs to occur. They have to be within 90 days. Some were policy-driven, and a few were at collection sites. I can't speak exactly on the issues, but those will be followed up. I think most of them have been followed up on. Chris can provide more of an update on that.
Okay.
Yeah, just to chime in real fast. Yeah, I think we've received just about everything from RATP Dev. Yeah, the deadline for all the submittals is July 23rd, but I think we're going to be able to get this submitted within the next couple weeks, and then it'll be all taken care of. And yeah.
Yeah, they were on site April 22nd through the 24th. I think I said February, so my apologies.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that update. Moving on to the update art ridership report. The staff will provide information on FY 2023 and year-to-date fiscal year 2024 ridership.
Yeah, so let me share my screen. This was based on feedback during our last meeting. We wanted to be able to show you all a way to kind of look at the ridership data and to hopefully help us, plan for the future and make some important steps for improving the service. So I'm just going to kind of briefly go through the documents so we know what we're looking at, and we'll continue to update this for our transit committee meetings.
Mm-hmm.
So the first sheet that we're looking at the very top, it gives us just a snapshot of the current month or the current the past, the most recent completed month, which is April. So this information just gives you a little snapshot of the ridership for April 24 over ridership for April 23 of last year. So just real briefly, just to look at the information that's provided here, the ridership is at 136,000 for April 2024, and last year it was at 119,000. So that's about a 14% increase over last year.
Chris, can you scroll to the graph? Okay, or you're showing it? Okay, great.
Yeah, and
it's hard.
I'll just briefly go through this. The top part here, we have FY24 monthly ridership. So that's month by month, route by routes. We have, last year's ridership here as well. At the bottom, we have just the difference between the ridership year over year. So the red will be the negative. To the right, you have the percentage of the variance of this year over last year for each route. So just right off the bat, we have some negative numbers in N1 and N2 and a few others. The biggest increases of this year have been for We1, We2, and W6 at 18%. So We1 was 27% increase over last year, We2 15%. And so up at the top, we just have a couple ways to visualize the data. This right here is fixed route monthly ridership comparison. So what we're looking at, the blue line is the current year, FY24. The red line is FY23. Just kind of shows you month by month how the ridership has been trending. You can kind of see that there's a similar pattern for both years, but we're at an increase this year.
Yep.
Which is right now we're currently at about 15% over from last year.
Chris,
yes.
Quick question. I don't have a route map in front of me. We1 and We2, can you just summarize where those are located? I've forgotten.
Yeah, the We1 goes from, I'm still getting used to it as well, but New Leicester Highway at Walgreens to Veteran Affairs.
Yeah.
That's We1. And We2 is Patton Avenue at Goodwill to Porter's Cove Road at I-40. So yeah, those are the two We routes.
Thank you.
Does that answer? Okay, great. And here, let me make sure I can see it. Here's some hands being raised. So yeah.
Yeah,
Elaine?
Elaine. Go ahead, Elaine.
The drop in N1 and N2, is that related to the construction at UNCA, or is there another reason for that?
That I'm not sure. I haven't been able to drill down on the data. The negative numbers have been going longer than the construction, as far as I know. I think the construction did it start over the winter, I believe?
A little earlier than that.
Yeah.
A little earlier? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it looks like it's been lower since before the construction began. So that's something that we're going to have to take a look at. And this could be, as sort of, Paul and Amber were kind of talking about, just post-COVID changes in ridership, and this could play into some of the future changes that we make for some of our routes.
Okay, thank you.
If the trends continue, yeah. And Kara?
First off, I just want to say this is fantastic. I actually made a note before this meeting to make sure I mentioned that this is awesome and so glad to be seeing this data. I've got a question on how far you can drill down. I know in the Transit Master Plan, they have a really cool map that shows like where most people get off and where most people get on average. Is that data available? Is that in the scheme to get down to? I mean, I know like the We1 and We2 like share a large portion of the route, and I would just be curious like what that overlap looks like. I don't know what you already have in the store, but just love this data and love where you're going with it.
Yeah, I mean, this sheet won't go that deep. It's just sort of looking at the high level, the big picture in a way of each route. That is something that we can. It's certainly possible to do. I have a draft of a spreadsheet that does look at ons and offs. It's not finalized yet. We still need to work on the data. We are still in the process of migrating our APC data to a cloud platform, and that's going to help us pull reports a lot easier. It should be more accurate. So that's something we're in the process of doing. So once we get through that, and hopefully that'll be happening within the next 2 months, we'll be able to drill down and kind of look at those trends.
Okay. Bill?
Yeah.
Excuse me, Chris.
Yeah, Chris, I just wanted to say it's a repeat invite. So you met Elise. Elise is with Multimodal, and Elise is a data wizard and has expressed a desire, if you'd like, to support efforts like this. So I think all she needs is a data dump, and she can start spinning it out and diagnosing things like what Kara talked about without any further burden on you or anybody else's part. So now that's what she expressed a couple months ago. I assume it's still valid, but I mean, here's a case where you've got citizens willing to volunteer their time to help unload you of responsibility, because we always talk about we got resource problems. We always got to talk about money problems. Well, there's an idea that might be worth an hour phone call just to see what she can offer. So I wanted to repeat that because I think she would agree again, although she needs to say that. It's her invite, not mine. But I just want to remind you of that. She's very talented. She's a data scientist. She does data all the time. And I have a feeling she can probably spin some pretty interesting things that'll be really useful. So wanted to let you know that again.
Yeah, and that's definitely on our list of to-dos. Once we get the data corrected and fixed and migrated, we'll be able to provide a lot of that information to you or to Elise. Yeah. Elaine?
I think her hand is just still up from the last.
Okay.
Oh,
yeah. Shara, I think she raised her hand again.
Yeah, I love data. I'm more of a question. Is there a standard, an industry standard for like, as we're trying to advocate for frequency and as we're trying to express how frequency increases ridership, like we know, and density obviously increases ridership as well. Is there like an industry standard formula for like density compared to frequency? And like we know for like the W1, 2, and 6 all combine in on a route. So maybe we loop them together because we're kind of counting them as like as far as like frequency on there, even though they're only an hour or 30 minutes a piece. It's like a half-formed question, but I didn't know if there's an industry standard for that.
I know. I mean, I think it depends on each system. I can't speak to an industry standard. It just depends on what our needs are. It depends on our transfer points. Yeah, I don't have a good answer for you, but I think there's just a lot of factors involved that, you know, if we make one change, it's going to affect others. And it's just sort of can be a domino effect, but it's also like a juggling game as well.
Yeah, I guess more of like a metric, not asking for us to change anything, just like as we're starting to dive into the data, which is awesome. Like I would say that the S3, S6 has like a 45-minute frequency for a large portion of it because a large portion of the laps overlap. Is there a way to overlay that, or how do other comparable places overlay that frequency with the ridership numbers that you just provided? And this may not be the right time for this discussion. Just kind of wanted to throw out these questions because I've been Googling and haven't found good answers and didn't know if y'all knew that off the top of your head.
And I can just add a little bit to this. You know, you were only given like a spreadsheet with just ridership. There was no revenue out, like passenger hours, miles. A lot of characteristics are based on like service standards and performance standards. So a lot of industries, the industry usually looks at passengers per hour, passengers per mile, and those we can take a look at. We're trying to provide information, like we didn't do the passengers per mile or per revenue hour just because we haven't been able to spend a lot of time and we've had issues with our data migration. But these are all items that we're going to be providing you, and you can get a really good feel on the passengers per hour, which kind of also takes into account the frequency. And so you'll have a feel of what's being taken place on those routes. And I just want to give Chris kudos. I told him that this is something that I've wanted to see, just because a spreadsheet with just ridership numbers for each fiscal year doesn't really help you or get an understanding based on what the routes are doing. So we would be looking at passengers per hour or passengers per mile. That'll also give us some more data points and they'll look at that, and all of that will be like ranked on a comprehensive operational analysis for productivity. And you'll see the ones that are more frequent have higher levels, which builds into the case of frequency.
Mm. Thank you.
Hopefully
Bill,
that helped.
It did, Amber. It did. Bill has his hand up.
Kara, just to let you know, at a previous meeting, I think before you joined, we were talking about frequency, and Jessica said she has data that can relate frequency to ridership increase. So I'd say seek out Jessica. She might have that, what the kind of metrics you're looking for.
Cool. Thanks, Bill.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Bill. Okay. Is that it for you, Chris, on that? Right.
Yeah, I mean, you know, on the the next tab here, we just have a comparison of year over year for each route. Nothing really to spend too much time on, but again, we'll be updating this each month for you to see the ridership trends. But yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Other thing that when I was looking at those figures for the buses, those numbers were way up. I said they were down, now they're back up. And I'll be wondering, I said, I'm wondering why the increase in such numbers, the frequency of the riders on there. I said, I don't know, people just want to ride or whatever, but the numbers look good. They look great. They look really great. And I noticed also on the fare free day, on riding the WE1 out and coming back, the riders that were on the bus, both going out to the mall and coming back from the mall and stopping at the grocery stores and different things like that, I was amazed. I said, God, those are the same people that were riding when I was frequently going to the VA and back from the VA just about every week for classes. But I said, they still ride. I like that. They still ride. That was amazing. That was amazing. I like that. Okay, I want to add that, Bill. Chris. Bill had his hand up. Go ahead, Bill.
I'm sorry I'm dominating the conversation, but just another thing popped in my mind. I'd like to challenge everybody to think about and do Google research or whatever, and especially staff. What should we strive for? What's the good number for a city like Asheville? Should it be X some percent of the population? What should it be? I mean, it's always great to increase. I think another thing to think about is, what do we want to be? Do we want to be 300,000 in a month instead of 150,000 a month? Is there evidence to say that good systems can do that? Those are the directions I think we ought to be thinking about in terms of what we want to be. What does good look like, and how many riders should we have if we did things better, if you will? So another just comment from the peanut gallery.
All input is taken well. That's good. All input is good, Bill. Okay. All right, moving on. Thank you, Bill. Chris, is that it? You have any more graphs to show us?
No, that's it.
Okay. Well, the next one is probably you too, though, Chris. Fare Free Day, May the 13th. Staff will provide an update of ART's Fare Free Day.
Yeah, well, I think, unfortunately, I haven't been able to fully go through the data for the ridership, but I can provide an update on that next meeting. But in preparation for the meeting, we acquired fare box sleeves to place over the fare boxes with the art design on them. We were able to, post the event to the city's website, online, and on the LCD screens and in the buses. So I think working with RETP Dev, I think it was a success. But next month I'll be able to kind of provide you with a more of an idea of how ridership looked for those days or for that day.
Okay. On the subsequent routes, like Mountain Mobility, did y'all get word out to them as far as disseminating better literature, putting it up in the buses, because there was none?
Yeah, we followed up with them. They appreciated your feedback. There's a couple things that we can do to improve that next time. So yeah, we'll be working with them next time there is a free fare event to make sure the message gets out and is posted properly.
Other thing too, Chris. As far as up at the transit station, I necessarily didn't see anything up there as far as posters or whatever. The same information that we had on our sheets.
The free fare event was posted on the LCD screens. So that's inside the lobby and outside the transit center there. Yeah.
Because I didn't have time to notice this. How often did it come up on the screens?
It's like probably every 30 seconds. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Chris. Thank you. I appreciate it very much. And it was good working with you on that Monday. It was good working with you on that Monday. And plus the other days that I bothered you too. I appreciate all your help, Chris. It's been good. Okay, moving on. Operations updates, art staff, RATP Dev, general manager update. Art general manager will provide updates on art activities. Keith Sanders.
Thank you again, Chairman Harold. I wanted to take the time now to recognize two of our employees. Or May we did re-implement the Employee of the Quarter. And we have James Kilmer, who is a 5-year transit employee. He's currently a level 2 technician. Some of his hobbies are disc golf, motorcycling, gardening, and home brewing. We have Diane Cook, who is a bus operator. She's been a bus operator since 2005. She has been accident-free since 2006. And currently she is serving as the ATU Vice President. We did take the time to recognize them individually. They had an award. We shared their accolades with their peers during our last safety stand down, as well as shared them with our peers at the corporate level. We're very excited to have them. We're very excited that they have set the bar going forward for other operators. And we just wanted to acknowledge them. I would like going forward for the next quarter or in the next 3 months that we just bring them on just to say hello so you can put a name with the face. But we're very glad to have re-implemented this recognition. We have other things going forward. We're going to explore the million milers, which are recognized at the NTD level, as well as our 2 million milers. So we're looking at opportunities to just recognize operators, because driving a bus 15 years ago when I did is certainly different than 15 years later. Our on-time performance. If we look at it for calendar year, our on-time performance for earlies was as high as 11%. When I did a year over year in March and April of 2023 respectively, we were early at 7% and 6% respectively. For March and April of 2024, we've decreased to 6% and 5% respectively. We have more control over our earlies than we do over our lates. We've launched several pilots. One was on the S2, where we engage with the operators. We are utilizing our road supervisors more to engage with the operators. What we're implementing is each time an operator sees a supervisor, it's not about discipline. It's about recognition. It's about coaching. It's about instruction. So what me and the team are doing, we are pushing forward, changing the culture around safety, changing the culture around recognition. So we're very excited with the direction that we're going, which is showing in the data.
Good.
Some of our safety initiatives, LaShawn, Danielle, and myself, We just came back from Greenville, South Carolina, and we've attended a safety program. As part of that safety program, we've looked at all of the applications that we have. We have Safe Tracker, we have Click, we have Fleet Response. And what we learned from that day-long training is how to interpret the data. It's great when you see it, but it was a good opportunity for us to understand how is it being utilized at the corporate level, and how can we employ some of that data at the local level and push that data out to the operators. We have noticed a decrease in our accidents. In January, our accident rate was as high as 9. Our year to date for accidents was 19. As of the 17th of May, our accidents dropped down to 3, and that's 3 preventable accidents. So we're making a lot of strides.
Right.
We use an application called Live or Drive Cam, and our coaching effectiveness, which measures the effectiveness of the manager to the bus operator, and to see if there's any repeated performance. That has decreased. That has improved tremendously. Some of our heavy hitters, our top 10, they have fallen off the top 10 list for over the past 2 weeks.
Deal.
To further build on that trend, anyone that remains on the top 10 list, they will see LaShawn and myself. So at the GM level, which no one wants to get to, just so that we can have those conversations. As it surrounds Lytics and DriveCam, it's not about discipline, it's about learning. It's about instruction. Currently we're using TAPCO, which is a nationwide bus operator training program. We've taken the opportunity to take some of that TAPCO language when we counsel the operators after accidents or during their Lytics training sessions. We take that same language and put it inside their coaching session. So what the operator, and we have developed our own internal standard operating procedures. So how does that all tie into decreasing bus operator accidents? Not only do the operators hear what they've done wrong, they see what they've done wrong, but now they have a tangible document at the end of accident retraining, at the end of Lytics, at the end of safety stand downs. They walk away with something tangible that they can always refer back to. It's one thing to hear it, but what it's saying, all they're getting, get the first an understanding. So we certainly want them to understand what they did wrong, how could they improve. So that's the full conglomerate of our safety initiatives, and we want to build upon that. We did tell the operators that we will incentivize them if we can get through now next month with 1 accident, which is our standard goal is 1.5. If we do that, we'll recognize them further. The end of the year, I will take all of these things and we will have a raffle for Operator of the Year. So there's a lot of fun things. I want operators to have a good time coming to work, as fun as work can be. We want to continue to change the culture and build upon that. I did touch on our manpower. We are healthy. We're putting out 100% of our volume or 100% of our scheduled service. Lisa Galvin, who is our director of maintenance, she's done a remarkable job. She was able to lead us through the triennial. She was able to bring us through the FTA drug and alcohol audit, and she will certainly be missed, but we've had minor deficiencies, and she's closing out those things before she leaves on Friday. She's assisting us in closing out those open-ended items, which were low-hanging fruits, nothing mission critical, so we're very happy for that. Scott Young is, again, leading us, keeping us afloat. He's treading water, and while our director of maintenance is out on a longer term leave under FMLA, but I'm happy that both Danielle, who will be taking over as director of safety, Danielle Akins, who's our Director of Fleet of Fixed Route, and Scott, who is our Operations Supervisor, taking over Director of Maintenance. They did not have to be voluntold. They accepted these assignments willingly. LaShawn and I are going to work very closely with them with our 60 years of collective experience to ensure that no balls are dropped. However, we're going to still yet look for permanent replacements. We want to make sure that who we get has the certifications that we need, they have a full understanding of what we need, and we can partner hand in hand to continue to put out service and continue our trends. So it will be a competitive recruitment search, and we're looking forward to these challenges. And as I explained to you, Danielle and Scott, these are opportunities for us to maximize their potential and see what it is they have, because I do like to look at internal candidates before we go outside. But this is a great opportunity for them to show us what do they have that has not been tapped, so their untapped potential. Shifting gears to maintenance, we want to be good stewards of the city's money. Bill, we heard you. So we've taken this opportunity to look at the Patera buses, and we're able to do a couple of test runs on one of the buses. We have some other things that we're going to do, but we were able to deploy one of the buses today. And we're going to wait to see what type of data that we get. We're doing a tremendous job in working with the Patera, who's with the new provider for Patera, as well as our supplier, Ventura, and procuring the parts. We should have more parts procured within the next 6 to 8 weeks, and some of those parts include wheelchair ramps, wiring harnesses. And so as much as we can get the parts from the provider, we will deploy that into the bus and try to push out some of the other Proteras. We are going to work with our peers. Whatever the supplier cannot provide to us, we're going to work with our peers in Greensboro, Raleigh, and continue to move forward to get as many buses prepared and in service as possible. We do have an aging fleet of Gillets. Some of our buses are old enough to almost vote. So it's very important for us to get the Proteras out and continue down the road, providing great transit service. And we are exploring the use of Zonar. Zonar is a maintenance pre-trip inspection tool. It helps us keep track of any pre-pull-out checks, any relief checks, helps us understand what needs to be fixed. It's an electronic tool, electronic data, so we can get those reports. Because I'm turning to Scott to make sure that our percentage of repairing buses meets the expectations of the city, as well as the expectations corporate side. And that is all that I have for the GM's report, unless there are any questions. I'll turn it back over to you, Chairman Harold, we can go through other reports.
Amber has her hand up.
I just wanted to thank Keith. Keith just started in March. We're happy that he's here. And I just wanted him to give an update on some of the activities. I don't know, Harvey, if you want to go through. I know for time we're a little over, but I just wanted to thank Keith and the team for everything that you all do, and the operators. I think it's fantastic. You're doing the quarterly employees recognition. And I just think it's great that you shared it with the transit committee. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, I want to thank him as well. Thank all of the staff as well. Keith, that was an in-depth, the information you gave me was everything that I needed. One thing, I think I understood this. Did you say Danielle was going to be the new safety director?
She'll be the acting safety director. So she'll be split into like an atom. She'll still manage the operations and road supervisors, dispatchers, customer service, and she'll be taking over as the acting director of safety. But she will not be alone. She has the support of corporate, the senior vice president of safety. She has a regular cadence with Francine James. And between Sean and I, as I said, 60 years of experience, we'll all partner and continue.
Oh, I just didn't want you to take it away from me.
Oh, absolutely not. No.
I gotta have somebody to call and pick on, and Sean don't want to answer the phone no more.
Well, for that reason alone, I'll make sure she stays on board. So that's fine.
I know that Sean is busy. Yeah. But the only other thing I think I had was about the electric buses.
Yes.
Because we have 5 of them and one of them works. And you're getting parts for 1 or 2 of them.
Yes.
Are we trying to see if we can sell them to other cities that might? Oh, that's right. Because they said you can't sell them because it's under government contract. Yeah. You have to keep them.
We're still looking at our options. They are still considered a federal asset.
Yeah.
So we would have to confer with FTA. The parts availability has just loosened up a little bit, so we can have access to some parts. It's hit or miss though, depending on what it is. So we're really trying to address it proactively, and the team at RETP Dev is trying to do the same. We'll keep you all posted. They've been really good. We meet on a weekly basis to kind of go through a more detailed analysis on operations and maintenance. We do that weekly, and the Proterras are in constant discussion, but it has been brought up. We have not looked at all of our options. That would be an option, but we just can't go out and sell it because there is still federal funding in it as an asset. So we'd have to look at our options and work with FTA.
Okay. Last thing, how about the company that makes electric buses in North Carolina? Have y'all looked into them as far as the buses that they have?
Well, Proterra was the one in South Carolina.
There's one in North Carolina that makes the school buses, the electric school buses, I think. I don't know what kind of buses that they do electric buses as well.
I don't know if they have transit buses.
Uh-huh.
I don't know for certain though. We can check.
Okay, I appreciate it. All right, that's it for me. But I appreciate everything that staff has done. I appreciate everything that my committee members have done. Nice to meet Paul and Keith. I'm still coming after you for your voice.
Well, thank you. I'll be ready. Now, if everyone leaves, if everyone runs out for church, do not hold me accountable, sir.
We practice.
Thank you, Keith.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there anything that anybody else wants to discuss? If not, I'll call this meeting an adjournment. And we'll see each other June 18th, 2024. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. Everybody.